The Iran-Contra Affair by Maddie, Kimmy, and Kyle. What was it? Here's a very brief summary. The U.S. sold arms to Iran. Since the arms were expensive, the extra money went to the Contras in Nicaragua. Many rules were broken, which led to a series of hearings. There are two main parts of the affair. Number one is support for the Democratic Contras against the Communist Sandinistas at a time when Congress had cut off funds to the Contras. Number two, selling arms to Iran in exchange for the release of American hostages.
Who is involved in it? Ronald Reagan, the Contras, Sandinistas, Oliver North, and Robert McFarlane. Here's a quote from Ronald Reagan. "A few months ago, I told the American people I did not train arms for hostages. My heart and my best intentions still tell me that it's true, but the facts and evidence tell me it's not." Here's a quote from Oliver North. "I don't think there's another person in America that wants to tell the story as much as I do."
But why did the U.S. help the Contra rebels? Here's a history of the U.S. and Nicaragua from 1979 to 1986.
The U.S. and Nicaragua, 1979. When Sandinistas took power in 1979, President Carter from the U.S. gave them some money to help them on the U.S. side. A bit later, the Sandinistas signed some agreements with the Soviet Union and Russia. This raised concern for America, who was giving the Sandinistas money.
Reagan as president, 1981. Then, Reagan became president. In 1981, he cuts off all funds going to the Sandinistas. He then started providing the Contras in Nicaragua with money. He viewed the Contras as an anti-communist group, while many other Americans disapproved of the Contras because they are involved with some negative things such as rape.
Boland Amendment, 1982. The Boland Amendment was released in 1982. The amendment prohibits the U.S. from funding anything that is meant to overthrow the Nicaraguan government. Basically, it was telling Reagan not to fund the Contra rebels.
Secretly funding the Contra rebels. From then on, officials in the U.S., such as Oliver North, found ways to secretly get supplies and money to the Contras. This continued until 1986, when a plane bringing supplies to Nicaragua was shot down. This led to many hearings where the truth about the affair was discovered. But why is it the Iran-Contra affair, not just the Contra affair? Here's a history of the U.S. and Iran.
1983 to 1984. The U.S. was against selling arms to Iran. America thought Iran was a country filled with terrorists. People in America started thinking about how they could influence Iran.
1985. Some Iranians began talking about what eventually became the Iran side of the Iran-Contra affair. They came up with a plan for the U.S. to sell Iran arms via Israel. In exchange, Iran would release some American hostages from Lebanon. These ideas were presented to a man named McFarlane in the U.S. He encouraged talk with Iran. McFarlane presented the plans to Reagan while Reagan was in the hospital. Reagan agreed to let Israel sell 100 American-made TOW missiles to Iran. In exchange, the Iranians would release some U.S. hostages. The shipment arrived in Iran, but no U.S. hostages were released. After 500 missiles were sent, only one U.S. hostage was released, who was Benjamin Weir.
1986. The hearings begin. In the hearings, no one found out if Reagan knew about aiding the Contra rebels or not. 14 people were charged. The investigations led to convictions of several members of the Reagan administration, but Reagan himself was never punished because no one knew how involved or how much he controlled the whole thing. Eventually, it was found that the National Security Advisor, Poindexter, had authorized the diversion of arms sales to the Contra rebels while keeping it a secret from Reagan. Here's a short clip of Oliver North's testimony on day 26 of the hearings. The hearings went on for 3 months.
Oliver North was the guy who was most involved with selling arms secretly and giving supplies to the Contras.
hearing will please come to order. Mr. Lyman will resume the questioning. Mr. Lyman. Mr. Cave recognized that there was probably going to have to be some give and take. And I think that we made every effort to achieve the primary objective, all the hostages home, and then proceed with the initiative in its broader sense as we had originally defined it. But that the Iranians were unwilling throughout, not necessarily just because of Mr. Ghorbanifar, but to proceed apace so that
That's it.
Thanks for watching. We hoped you learned a lot.